Off the Wi-Fi.
Huh?
If we are to advance liberty and justice, we need to secure our border and fix the immigration system.
No, I'm not going to be wearing a mask tonight. If I had little children or if I were around little grandchildren, I would.
President Biden gave his first SOTU yesterday, which was interesting to say the least. We've got Ukraine updates, and also some updates from the SOTU that have to deal with Ukraine. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
One.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from downtown Honolulu. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live on today. It is March 2nd, the year of our Lord 2022. Appreciate you tuning into Daily Caller Live this morning, the day after Joe Biden's first State of the Union address, in which he addressed the union and the state of it. SOTUs are stupid. We'll get into why I think that in just a couple minutes. Actually, you know what? We're just going to get right into that specifically. The State of the Union address, as you can see, I'm wearing my, man, I got to stand up here. My what? Joe Biden shirt, his catchphrase t-shirt I'm wearing today. But Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address yesterday, and some interesting things unfolded. First things first, I'm just going to outright and say it. I think we should get rid of the SOTU. I think it's dumb. I think it's useless. I think it's pointless. The entire intent of the State of the Union address, originally, historically speaking, the State of the Union address was a letter written from the president to Congress. And that letter was published in newspapers around the country where people could read what the president had to say, because they didn't hear from the president every single freaking day. And then it became this speech given to Congress, joint session of Congress. Then it became this big televised, what did I call it yesterday? Partisan hack plan of attack. That's what it is now. The SOTU has been stupid for several years. I was saying the same thing when President Trump was giving SOTU addresses, and it still continues to be dumb when President Biden gives SOTU addresses. The standing and clapping and all of that nonsense, completely unnecessary in a world where the president gets to talk to you every single day if he wants to, or she wants to. But nevertheless, I thought there were a couple interesting things that happened in the SOTU that I thought were really, really interesting. First things first was the masks. I think that was everybody's question on the top of their mind. I, honest to God, didn't really care what he said in the actual SOTU. We have clips of him saying things in the State of the Union address, and there's really one big one that I was like, oh, wow, cool. But most of what I was curious about revolved around masks. Watch this clip from the Wicked Witch of the West, Nancy Pelosi. We've got something going on with the hair here. Watch this clip from Nancy Pelosi yesterday talking to, was it CBS, about masks. Check this out.
To quickly ask you about that, because the CDC mask guidance, of course, changed last week. Today, DC officially lifted its indoor mask guidance. Are you going to be wearing a mask tonight?
No, I'm not going to be wearing a mask tonight. If I had little children or if I were around little grandchildren, I would, because some of them would not be vaccinated. Or if I were around a person or were a person with some kind of a condition that would make me susceptible to it. So I think people have to use their judgment about it. But I do think that if people make their own judgment, I make my own judgment that I won't be wearing a mask tonight.
So that was Speaker Nancy Pelosi talking about, there's spoiler alert, that's a fun clip coming up next, talking about not wearing a mask. Will you be wearing a mask tonight, Speaker? She said, no, I will not. I don't know why I did that voice for Nancy Pelosi, but she said, no, I will not be wearing a mask, only if kids were there. Why? That doesn't really make any sense. Kids are the least susceptible to the COVID bat fever, Chinese bat fever, thank God. But is that the reason you would wear a mask? That's odd. Interestingly enough, a day before the SOTU, so not yesterday, the day before that, which was Monday, Washington, D.C. lifted all their mask mandates. Ben Shapiro was going nuts on his show about this yesterday, talking about, I called it months ago, that he said this, called it months ago that the day before the State of the Union address, Washington, D.C. would lift all of their mask mandates, and Joe Biden would come out there and say, we did it, we defeated COVID. Look, if you're watching this, I know there's a couple thousand of you watching this right now. Click the little like button, click the little share button. Would really, really appreciate it. It helps us get out to more people because people have to see this clip. I think this is hilarious. We've got some back-to-backs here. Joe Biden Monday, and then Joe Biden yesterday. Literally a day apart doing what Joe Biden does. Watch this. This is Joe Biden walking in the middle of a field with nobody within 100 yards of him wearing a mask outdoors.
Mr. President, is Ukraine winning the war? Mr. President, you believe Putin will use a nuclear weapon? Mr. President, are you worried about nuclear war?
So if you're just watching this, if you're just listening to this and not watching this, Joe Biden is in the middle of a field by himself. You can see that nice little picture there. Nobody around him for, I don't know, a couple dozen yards. Nobody around. He's wearing a mask outdoors in the middle of a field. That was 2 days ago. That wasn't like 6 months ago. That was Monday. On Tuesday, the president then walked into the State of the Union address like this. I cut off the, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the President of the United States. But this is Joe Biden walking into the SOTU yesterday. Not 1 day after him walking in the middle of nowhere with a mask on, he did this.
Like the flag.
So that's the president glad handing people as he walked into the joint session of Congress yesterday to deliver the SOTU address. Not a mask in sight the entire time. Because if you don't remember, literally last week, a bunch of your big Democrats were continuing to wear masks and promote masks, and masks save lives. If you don't wear a mask, you're killing Granny. Here's the problem: is literally the next day they go in and apparently they don't need them anymore. That's it. That's all done. A day and a half, like a day after. If they were following the science, they would have ditched those things literally months ago, probably years ago. I know there's a lot of people watching around the country from, I don't know, states like Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, and they're like, what are you talking about? People aren't wearing masks. I'm in Honolulu right now, and the mask police are in full force. Not to dig into what we had to go through yesterday. Maybe we'll talk about it at the end of the show. But the mask police are still out in force. Yet the president of the United States on Monday, in the middle of the field with nobody around him wearing a mask, and yesterday in a full joint session of Congress with no mask. So find me the logic there. Again, Shapiro was so excited yesterday when he got to say, I called it. Washington, D.C. health advisor, whatever that person is, said the day before the SOTU, all right, we're done. Masks are good. We finished COVID. COVID is officially over. So there's that. I wanted to get to this clip from the SOTU before we talked about, So President Biden yesterday during his State of the Union address called Ukrainians Iranians, and I've been making fun of that all day in my head. So I am now calling Ukraine Iran. Go figure. There's a Freudian slip for you. So listen to this. This is one part of the SOTU yesterday that I thought was really interesting, that I agree with, you probably agree with, and is probably shocking to come out of the President of the United States' mouth, especially when the President of the United States has presided over. Let me just play the clip for you.
If we're to advance liberty and justice, we need to secure our border and fix the immigration system. So that was President Biden yesterday saying
if we are going to have a democracy, we need to secure our border and fix our immigration system. I agree with that. You probably agree with that. Most of America agrees with that. But we're also all probably collectively shocked that it's coming out of the president that has presided over the worst immigration crisis at the border since the dawn of time. I don't know. Since in the last 50 years. Record numbers of illegal immigrants crossing the border every single month. I think there were like between 150 and 200,000 every single month. So it's weird that the president who is presiding over that, and then his vice president sitting behind him, who is tasked with stopping it, is now getting up there and saying, we must protect our borders. Yes, Mr. President, I agree with you. We all agree with you. Everybody agrees with you. We should do that. But again, it's weird coming from you. Interesting. So there's that. Let's see if we can get to any of these comments. Oh, geez. A lot of comments about the masks, the face diapers. Yeah, funny. Biden always lying. A lot of FJB stuff still coming in. Long time. It's been a while, but the FJB comments are still going strong constantly. And the LGB. People, a lot of people in the comment section generally a part of the LGB, FJB community plus. So there's that. Let me see. I want to get to this on a more serious note. Here's some updates about Ukraine. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. I'm going to explain this. Okay, if you're watching this, I see right now there's a couple thousand of you watching this across all of the different Daily Caller platforms and my page and all of these other pages. If you haven't already, you needed to share this because our Vice President, Kamala Harris, has blessed us with another soundbite that is going to make you probably cry laughing or, run into the closet horrified that she actually has some sort of power. One of the two things. But Kamala Harris described what is going on in Ukraine on a morning radio show. Actually, I don't know if it was a morning radio show. It was a radio show yesterday, called into a radio station and gave her analysis of what's going on in Ukraine. Click the little like button, click the little share button. Everybody needs to hear this. This is hilarious or horrifying. One of the two things. Horrifarious, maybe one would say. Listen to this.
If you're watching any level of news, even social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine. Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
So thank you, Ms. Vice President. So Russia is a big country in Europe, and Ukraine is a small country in Europe. And Russia decided to invade Ukraine, which is wrong. Solid analysis from the half-wit Vice President of the United States. I want to give you some updates here for Joe Biden said something. Joe Biden said something actually pretty interesting in the SOTU yesterday that I feel like we should all be aware of, at least the implications and the ramifications of that. But let me get you just caught up here what's going on specifically on the ground in Ukraine. This is from NBC News. Russia stepped up its assault on key Ukrainian cities Wednesday as the seventh day of the Moscow invasion threatened to bring even greater violence and destruction to civilian areas across the country. Russia intensified its offensive with four strategic cities, Kharkiv, Mariupol, Kherson, and Kyiv, with a miles-long military convoy continuing to threaten Ukraine's capital. We talked about this yesterday. There's a photo of that in this corner of the screen. That is the, I think, like 40-mile-long Russian convoy. The anti-freedom convoy is what we called it yesterday, as opposed to the freedom convoy in Canada that we talked about extensively over the last couple of weeks. Its second largest city, Kharkiv, faced fresh shelling and overnight attacks from paratroopers, which is interesting. Right now, we've pretty much seen missiles, maybe plainclothes Russian soldiers walking the streets of Kyiv, but paratroopers are now involved in the attacks at Kharkiv, which is Ukraine's second biggest city. In the south, the port city of Kherson was subject to fierce firefights and disputes over who was in control. That is the port city that Putin really, really wants. Geographically, if you're looking at a map, which I don't have a map for you, if I was a better, more well-rounded show, I would have that. But Kherson is a port city that if Putin were to take all of Ukraine, he would have access to the sea in a much more strategic way that he hasn't had before. So that's part of the geographical reasoning is why Putin wants Ukraine in the first place. President Joe Biden warned during a State of the Union address on Tuesday that Russian President Vladimir Putin would pay a high price. That's the interesting part that I want to get to later on, in just a few minutes. Interesting part that we want to get to. Biden said he's more isolated than ever. Here are the 4 things that you should be wary about. So this is also interesting. Like 80% of Americans are paying close attention to this story. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see if that enthusiasm holds, but you can't get 80% of Americans to freaking watch the Super Bowl, let alone pay attention to a global news story. So clearly this is a pretty big deal. Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, got hit by fresh attacks. Russia claimed it took control of Kherson, the city's major, as the city's mayor said, it was waiting for a miracle. So a lot of eyes are on Kyiv, and that is still being held at this point in time. I just checked, 15 minutes ago. But some of the port cities, Russia has claimed to taken control of some of the port cities, a lot of the outskirts surrounding those port cities. Russian President Vladimir Putin, so Joe Biden in his speech, yada, 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 said that they will pay a price. We don't know what that means. This is a big number here statistically. The Kremlin moved to restrict independent media in Russia, so there's that. That's not the statistic. The statistic is more than 870,000 people have fled Ukraine. The UN estimates that number could grow to 5 million. Then you have the problem of what do you do with all of those refugees? What do you do, Europe? Not the U.S., Europe. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Joe Biden said something yesterday in his State of the Union address that I did want to get on here and talk about just briefly. But listen to this. This is interesting. I'm glad we're taking a harder line stance, but I'm not entirely sure, again, how militarily involved we should be with this, especially with what the president is promising. Listen to this.
Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for your ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy.
So the first part there is fine, I guess. If you want to squeeze oligarchs, that hopefully will put pressure on Putin, and some of them are. Some of those guys are apparently pretty dang brave, speaking out against Putin in Russia, having been put in place by Putin. So that's pretty gutsy on their behalf. But then Joe Biden said something kind of interesting that I feel like kind of went under the radar, but we also should probably keep a pretty close eye on. He said that we're going to close off airspace to Russian flights. Okay, so what does that mean? If you close off airspace, Vladimir Putin, remember, has no problem with testing limits. If you close off airspace and say the United States is going to assist in closing off airspace to all Russian flights, in effect, you have to back that up. What happens when Vladimir Putin just sends an airplane, maybe with civilians, maybe a military plane, across that restricted airspace? Do we shoot it down? In which case, we've then not attacked necessarily, defended, but in his eyes, in Putin's eyes, attacked one of his planes, possibly full of civilians. So I don't know. I don't know how that fits in. That's, again, some tough talk coming from the Biden administration, but I don't know how that plays out militarily, especially if the only way to keep your promise of restricting airspace is to then effectively shoot down planes that are in that restricted airspace. Do we shoot those planes down? Do we let them fly through? And if we let them fly through, does that mean our promises have no bite to them? It's going to get interesting. What's that Chinese proverb curse? May you live in interesting times. Yeah, that not entirely something that I want to figure out how to make it work. But bottom line is the world is starting to talk tough on Vladimir Putin and what's going on in Ukraine. And we'll only wait and watch to see how that plays out. I want to get to this. This is SOTU related, but on the lighter side. I know we've been kind of a dismal. It's been pretty down for the last week and a half. Last week specifically, when Russia decided to go in Ukraine. But we're going to end things on a lighter note here today. This is the word counts. Biden's speech, Biden's State of the Union word density. The final numbers are Ukraine 20, plan 19, Russia 18 times. These are all how many times he said the word. He said Ukraine 20 times. He said plan 19 times, Russia 18 times, jobs 15 times, Putin 12 times, COVID 12 times, and coming in fourth place is folks. Watch this montage, I think put together by Recount. I just thought it was kind of funny. Kind of end the day on a lighter note. Check
The Ukraine, Ukrainian people. For Ukrainian people. Ukraine, the Ukrainians, Ukraine, Ukrainians, Ukraine, Ukraine for the people of Ukraine. And I believe most Americans support the plan. And here's the plan. My plan, the American Rescue Plan. My plan, Russian. I say to the Russian oligarchs, Russia's lies, all Russian flights. Russian economy is reeling. Russian forces, even in Russia. Record job growth, new jobs for the jobs of the 21st century. Good jobs for jobs. American jobs to compete for the jobs. 10,000 new jobs. More jobs. But Putin was wrong. Putin's latest attack. Putin was planning. Putin is now isolated from the world. Putin's war in Ukraine. COVID-19. Folks.
So there's that. There's your counter. One other thing I want to talk about that I think people are hitting in the comment section. The jobs. He lied about the jobs. Yeah, a bunch of people talking about the jobs. Again, my point was not necessarily to bring up a bunch of the stuff in the SOTU because the SOTU is just a partisan hack plan of attack. It should be canceled. We shouldn't do it. It's unnecessary. It's a waste of time. I didn't watch it. I'm not going to pretend that I watched the whole thing. I got these clips from the internet. But what he was talking about jobs was interesting, and I feel like it needs to be addressed. Joe Biden was talking about, well, I've created a bunch of jobs over the last year, more jobs than anyone, without obviously stating the very, very obvious fact that, well, if you get rid of people's jobs and then reopen so that they can get those jobs back, I don't know how much that counts as job creation. My wife is sitting here in the room. If she has a waffle at breakfast and I take that waffle away from her, and then give it back moments later, I don't get to claim credit for giving her a waffle. She's looking at me grimacingly as if she doesn't want me to take said waffle. That's also an interesting, well, we'll get to that later, maybe another time. But so that's that. The jobs thing, wanted to address that. I created a bunch of jobs. Like, no, dude. You fired people from a lot of their jobs, or people lost their jobs due to the government shutdowns that didn't work. And then when they get those jobs back, I don't know how much credit you get to take for creating jobs. And then also, why is that a metric that the president of the United States needs to deal with? The president of the United States is not a job creator. Anyways, we're not going to get into that. Last thing I did want to talk about, just to make sure we're being fair here, there were a couple Congress people who heckled the president during his State of the Union address. Part of me would be like, sweet, that's funny, because the State of the Union is dumb and we shouldn't do it anymore. But at the same time, it doesn't make our side look good. So there's that. Just wanted to address that pretty quick. I know you've seen a lot of memes of people that shouted out during the president's speech. And let's see, did anybody do that during Donald Trump's speeches? I'm not entirely sure. If they did, I'm not aware of it. The only big ones I'm aware about were last night when a bunch of people, when Congress people heckled the president, and then like 2012 when Obama said, if you like your health care, you get to keep your health care, and that congressman yelled out, "You lie!" Those are the only 2 times I can remember. But as long as we're being fair, might as well point that out. Geez, I want to show you guys this view. It is interesting here. It's my wife in a condo. My wife and I here in a condo in Hawaii doing this show, just bringing it to you because the SOTU happened last night. It's like 25,000 people with us in this condo. So I don't know. It's fun doing these shows from abroad. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see. You know what? We haven't decided if we're going to do this show the next couple days. We're on vacation. It's a lot of work to do these things. So we haven't decided yet. We'll see how things go. Maybe you'll see you tomorrow. If not, definitely see you Monday morning back in the dingy bunker. But appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. If you follow me on Instagram, I am hilarious. So you know. At JOBOB, just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Getter. Truth, I'm on the whole Truth thing, but that doesn't work yet for me. I thought that was a publicity stunt when it first happened, when they were like, oh, we're cutting people off. I thought it was like, oh, this is a great way to get attention. And a week and a half later, it still doesn't work. But I'll be on there eventually. So give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Would appreciate that. Get to stay in touch. Send me stories. People send me stories all the time that make it on this show. So don't be afraid to say hello. We will see you next time we see you. I don't know. Check out the show if you missed any part of the segment. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Until then, God bless America.